John 6. One of the Jesus movies of a while back depicted John 6:28, where people are, in the movie anyway, getting off of a boat and they're running up behind Jesus and they're out of breath and they finally catch up to him as though they finally have this chance to ask him a question they've been thinking about for a long time. And here's how it came out. And this is in today's English version. What can we do in order that we can do the works of God? Literally in Greek, what can we do to work the works of God? In the Message version, what do we do then to get in on God's plan? It's as though they're asking Jesus, or they're tossing him a softball question. So what can we do to get in on what God is doing in this story that you claim to be a part of? What would we have expected Jesus' answer to be? And what do we get? It's always interesting how we get something just a little different than what we expect. Jesus' answer is, believe. There's that idea of loyalty. And then, as we've noticed, into. It's unique to John's Gospel. You believe into, and you'd expect him to say me, but instead you get him whom he, the Father, has sent. The way Jesus answers the question, I think, and this is reminiscent of other parts of John, like in John 11, when Jesus tells Lazarus to come out of the tomb, the text says, he who had been dead came out of the tomb. You could have just said Lazarus. But by giving that story over again very quickly, the one who had died previously, you get the sense that the answer is meant to draw you back through the story that has been told. So instead of believe in me, Jesus says, believe in him whom, talking about himself, he, the Father, has sent. And so you get this sense of movement. You get the sense of a story. We all have a story that we live by. And what Jesus is telling the people who are asking, well, how do we get in on what God is doing? He gives the story over again by emphasizing his role as being under the Father. And really what he's doing, he's capturing the Old Testament at the beginning of it, and Yahweh, and then moving through his own appearance on the earth. Is that enough? I've often thought of this answer as, and many of the answers that Jesus gives, is would that have struck me if I was in the audience as though that's enough? One of the most poignant moments in my teaching career back when I taught in Bible college was something that was said. It wasn't even me, and it was an atheist that I had brought in to the classroom, and he was a fairly well-known atheist, and I gave him the hour to explain why he was an atheist to these Christian students. And at the end, during the Q&A part, one of the students asked, in fact, I think it was the first one, she said, why don't you believe just in case you're wrong? Good question, and I'm sure it was on the minds of many students. And I'll never forget his answer. Without really hesitating, he said, I don't think you understand what you're asking. He said, if I believed what you believe about Jesus, it would change everything I know. And again, no one could have said it better, right? That when someone asks, how can we do what God is doing, or how can we get involved in his story? For Jesus to go back in and retell the story, ending with himself, if we were to believe that, I think the point of the people here, they would have said, wow, that changes everything. Because you're pulling into the answer everything that has happened, frankly, in the Old and New Testament stories to that point. So that's the basis then of a lot of these strong statements in John 6. I am the bread from heaven. If you eat me, you'll never hunger. Everyone who believes in me will have everlasting life. I will raise him up at the last day. These are shocking statements. Everyone who has learned from the Father will come to me. I have seen the Father. I will give my flesh for the life of the whole world. John doesn't have any parables officially in his book, but you get the sense of these short snippet parable-like statements, bread and eating and things like that. The words that I speak to you are spirit, that is, that they have the approval of God. Again, God's Spirit coming upon a person in the Old Testament signaled approval. Or, my words are spirit authenticated, God authenticated words. Well, then, as the crowd leaves, by the way, John 6:66 has a very sad commentary. It says, "From that time on, many people did not believe," or many people left Jesus. So John 6:66 is a watershed moment in the story of Jesus. Peter is then heard at the end of this story when Jesus singles him out. Well, Peter says, "Lord, to whom shall we go?" As Jesus is saying to Peter, "Are you going to leave as well?" Peter has this moment of saying, well, he looks around and says, "To whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life." In other words, Peter did believe into Jesus, and he's realizing that that is the story he has. And so everyone was gone. Peter was admitting that his innocence was lost, in no small part because of what he had gone through with Jesus to that point. So Peter will say to Jesus, "I can't leave." And may we all have that kind of attitude, that if Jesus were to turn to us and say, "Are you leaving as well?" that we would say with Peter, "I can't leave you because the story you're telling has become my story. I have joined your story, Jesus. And if I can't have that story, I have no story to believe in."